And the phrase in my heart that I have carried with me has been to create the red tent. So what is the red tent? Historically, the red tent refers to a cultural and symbolic space where women gathered together during menstruation, childbirth, and other significant rites of passage. This idea has roots in oral tradition, Middle Eastern tradition, even biblically. And so this idea of the red tent is that women have a safe place to share, to come together, to support one another in these sacred life transitions of childbirth, becoming a woman, going through menstruation, which even in menstruation, we see a physical, spiritual detox happening. Well, welcome back to the Pain-Free Birth Podcast. Today, I am talking to you, doulas, midwives, and birth workers of all kinds. If you work with pregnant women, or you have a burning desire to one day be a birth worker and support women in labor, it's a tug, it's a nudge, even if it's just a little flickering flame, but you are a little birth junkie who stays up late at night watching birth videos and you are fascinated by physiological birth and cannot get enough. And you think one day I want to be a fly on the wall. One day I want to be in the room when this happens. If that's you, on any degree of that spectrum, this is the episode for you. Today, we're talking about the issues that face birth workers today and how doulas can prepare themselves for a successful business in doula work and a fulfilling, sustainable practice. Because birth work has costs, and very often it leads to burnout. In fact, the average amount of time a doula practices is only about 2 years due to the high rates of burnout. And so I saw this across the field. I see and talk to women all day, every day who are preparing for pregnancy. And I've been a part of the doula community now for 12 years as a doula and served countless women in labor, helping them prepare for childbirth. And while I have been primarily supporting women through either coaching, training, education, or one-on-one doula work, I have had so many women request that they wanted a place, they wanted a training, they wanted a certification for doulas that aligned with their values, that came from the perspective that childbirth was a sacred, beautiful thing created by God, that it wasn't a medicalized event, that it didn't have to have a ton of interventions, but that God was the creator of this and his design is perfect and brilliant, and that we could honor God through our service and our work and that we could honor God in the work that we do as doulas. And after many years of prayer and much preparation, earlier this year, I launched the Pain-Free Birth Doula Mastermind. In fact, we sold out with 50 women in our very first cohort. Now, I truly believe that as women, we are uniquely qualified and called to support other women in labor, and that you don't need a piece of paper or certification from anyone in order to give you permission to do that. And this is something that's historical. This is biblical. This is traditional across many, many cultures, is that traditionally women supported women in life's major transitions, whether it was childbirth or menstruation or child raising, mothering, death, life and death. It was done in community. And this is such a radical departure from where we are now in our current modern society, where these things happen very much in isolation. I've talked about this before, but it's such a relevant topic to today and how it affects birth workers and the entire culture of birth, the birth industry, truly, because we have mothers who are isolated, who are battling postpartum depression, who are nutrient deficient, who are lacking true community and sisterhood. And then we have birth workers who come in who almost kind of fill that void of what in the past mothers and aunts and sisters and friends would fulfill. And so because we don't have that tight-knit community culturally anymore, doulas became necessary, not only for support and for guidance and education, but also because when birth moved into the hospital system 150 or so years ago, it became dominated by men, by male doctors who had never given birth, who didn't really understand the physiology of labor and the needs of women in labor. So God really put it on my heart to not only just support women preparing for childbirth, to have beautiful, ecstatic, empowering experiences where they own their birth and they connect to their body and they surrender to God, and birth becomes not something you have to suffer through, but something that you are proud of, that you think about and talk about for the rest of your life because it was that empowering and impactful. I truly believe that that's what birth is meant to be, and that for anyone that desires that kind of birth, it is available, but it takes work. I also felt led in this last year in starting the Doula Mastermind that I wanted to empower birth workers and doulas to support women in these, like, in the most vulnerable moments of their lives. Because I truly believe doula work is a sacred calling, and one in which Jesus is calling you to be his hands and feet to laboring women and to families who need that support. And let's be honest, I think every family, every woman could benefit from the support of a doula, whether they're in a hospital giving birth or at home or birth center. Doulas come to serve. And even the history of doulas, the original meaning of the word doula means servant. The term doula actually started after they were doing some studies in a hospital where there was someone assigned to take notes and document and just be present with a woman in labor in a hospital. And she didn't have a whole lot of clinical roles. She wasn't there to check the blood pressure. She wasn't there to direct the mother in pushing or prescribe medications. She was simply observing and taking notes. And what they found as a result of this study, almost accidentally, was that this person who was there to really just observe and take notes and document things ended up being the mother's like emotional support. So she was holding her hand. She was a consistent support throughout her labor that didn't change. And the presence of that continuous labor support was shown in this study to dramatically improve birth outcomes. And so the term and even the basis, the evidence for doulas was accidentally stumbled upon, and it grew out of the most simplistic experience of women simply having lower cortisol levels and experiencing more peace and better birth outcomes by having one person with them that offered continuous support. They weren't even there in the official capacity of a doula or some medical worker. They were simply there as a consistent labor support that allowed the mother to feel safer, more confident, and supported emotionally in her birth because someone was with her the whole time. She had no fancy tricks, no fancy training. She was simply a woman there, present, supporting the woman in labor. And that's where doulas came from. That's the original evidence that we have for doulas, and it's so simple and it's not complicated, and it goes to show you how much women need support from other women in labor, and how the benefit of a person there to encourage you can be so simple when those thoughts and those fears come in that make you think, oh, am I doing it right? Is this normal? How long is it going to be? And so that's how doulas came to be. And so in our modern society, doulas and birth workers are faced with many challenges, as mothers and families are faced with many challenges, because the system that we birth in today does not support physiological, undisturbed birth. It supports the management of childbirth as if it was a medical act, and a medical act that could go wrong at any time, where babies could crash at any moment, mothers could bleed out and hemorrhage, and people are seconds away from death. And that is how doctors and OBs and nurses are often trained in childbirth. They are trained to manage risk. And unfortunately, that is great. And that is great for women who need that level of care, who have high risk pregnancies, who have more likelihood of hemorrhaging, or babies that come early and need that level of support. But it doesn't work for the 95% of women who have low risk pregnancies, uncomplicated pregnancies, and simply want to birth their baby with the least amount of interventions as possible. And so we have a disconnect where women are birthing in a system that doesn't support their innate physiology and the way God designed their bodies for birth. And we have doulas coming in to support them in this system, getting frustrated, feeling burnt out, feeling disillusioned and unheard, because it's really hard to go up against a giant hospital and the policies and the procedures that are happening and the fear and the fear mongering and the even coercion that often takes place in these settings. And to see a mother who desires a physiological empowering birth often get bamboozled and pushed down an assembly line of interventions where we see the cascade of interventions that's highlighted so perfectly in the documentary, The Business of Being Born. For those of you who this concept might be new to, that's a great place to start to learn more about the hospital system. And in no way am I here to demonize hospitals, doctors, nurses. I am so incredibly grateful for modern medical care and that we have this available. And unfortunately, we have to balance that with in the birth and maternity system. It leads to the over medicalization of birth in our country. It leads to poor birth outcomes. Moms who are now recovering from C-sections, birth trauma, and just all of the downstream effects that has on mothers and babies and families. And so birth doulas carry a lot on their plate. They carry so much. And by nature, women who are called to birth work are so empathetic. And yet we often struggle with compassion fatigue, with disillusionment, with burnout, with wanting to make a change and an impact and not feeling like we can actually make that change. And so it leads to feeling unfulfilled and eventually walking away. I asked in my stories recently to birth work. I asked a question to birth workers in my stories recently. I said, what do you struggle with most about birth work? And the answers were so consistent and relatable. The number one struggle was being on call hours, juggling kids and family, and long hours away. The unpredictability of being a doula, especially with kids, and how to balance that life. And some of you responded saying, leaving my own babies to attend other births, or even finding backups. The on-call life and the doula life, the midwifery life is not for the faint of heart. This is such a massive responsibility that birth workers take. And in order to protect and preserve the spontaneity of labor, which is where labor works best, we have to be available and on call at the drop of a hat. And that could mean it's 3 a.m. or on your son's birthday party. So that was the hardest thing for most women. And I would agree with that those on-call hours, because it's not just one day where you're supporting a mother. You're supporting a mom for 2 weeks before her due date and 2 weeks after her due date, because she could feasibly give birth anytime within that window or even outside that window, but most likely it's within 2 weeks. So you're essentially signing on for a month of checking your phone, making sure your ringer is on, not going out, late at night to party, or being available for that entire month in order to support one client. And if you have multiple clients, that can get even more complicated in order to manage schedules or back-to-back births or have backup doulas available in case they go at the same time, which is unlikely, but it can happen. The number two thing that you guys struggled with most was actually the business side of doula work. You guys wrote in saying finding clients, knowing who to take or how many clients to take, knowing how do I get started? Where do I even find clients? This is a really common pitfall and struggle among doulas, because most of the doula training organizations out there do not train you in any kind of business skills or marketing or how to find clients, how to get the word out there that you are a doula. And market yourself, because any business, you need to market, you need to sell. Even if you're doing it for free, even nonprofits have to share their vision and tell people what they're doing, or no one will give to them. No one will donate. And so whether you charge like $100 for your birth work or thousands of dollars, there is always an element with any business, with any nonprofit you're running. And I don't recommend you do this for free. But there's always an element of sales. You have to be good at selling, and you're selling yourself, you're selling your services. So women are often feeling a little bit left behind after they get their doula training or certification. And then they go, okay, now what? When you're in business for yourself, it's up to you. It's you, and you're the only one doing the work. And so that was something I focused an entire month on in the Doula Mastermind, is training new doulas how to get clients, how to market, the legal ramifications of doula work and what legal safeguards you need, insurance, etiquette for social media and posting. We did an entire tutorial on walking you through how to create a website, how to use AI in your business to save time so you can stay home with your babies more and support women more and do more face-to-face of what you love, and not be having to spend all your hours trying to work on your business. We want you serving women, which is what you want. And so the business side is a headache, because most of the women that get into doula work don't get into it because they're super business savvy. They get into it because they want to support women. That's what brought us here. The other thing you guys wrote in a lot telling me about was working in a setting that didn't support women, supporting women in a hospital that has the attitude of, this is how we do it. You're a guest here. You have to fall in line. Advocating for patients when their doctor does not ask for consent, watching unnecessary interventions, even from midwives in home births, where we know maybe this wasn't entirely necessary. Doulas mentioned working for other doctors or nurses who act like we are competing with them, watching fear mongering and misinformation, or even watching moms make quote unquote bad choices and not really care about their maternity care. And then as the doula having to choose not to care, which is the definition of compassion fatigue, and generally the lack of support for what mom wants and not being able to change hospital policy. I can relate to so much of that, having worked in hospitals in birth work for so many years and seen that the system is designed to function exactly as it is functioning. And they are not interested in fixing a broken system. As much as we try to fix a broken system, it is working in their best interest, and that is what they want. And it will never be fixed so long as it is still working for them. The women birthing in the system are the only ones who can change it by demanding better, by saying, hey, I don't want on-call doctors. I don't want residents. I don't want to be checked every 2 hours. I want a better environment that doesn't have LED lights and interruptions and nurses coming in every 20 minutes. And I want to be treated differently. I want a higher standard of care, not just a safe care, but a higher standard of care where I am being treated with the utmost of respect. Until women start demanding those things and knowing that they have the right to demand those things because their doctors work for them and the hospital is a business that is serving them, nothing will change. And so that's why I support women in finding their voice first and foremost. And that is truly the sacred work I believe we do as doulas, is to support women in finding their power. Because I'm not there to take over. I'm not there to enforce your will. I'm not there to make sure nobody pulls a quick intervention on you, like as if it's going to come out of the, under the rug or something. Like, no, I'm there to make sure you find your voice and your power, and we protect your space. We protect your physiology. We protect what's happening in your body, because mama, you're in charge. And so that's the heart that I serve from. And that's the heart that I want to inspire other doulas and birth workers to emulate. The other thing women shared with me was the work it takes to inform their clients, because what I just mentioned, that power shift where women are moving and shifting from, okay, whatever the doctor says, I'll do. Doctor knows best, to this is what the kind of birth I want and am willing to advocate for. And I am taking radical responsibility for my birth. That shift does not happen overnight. That is a deep work of the soul. And sometimes it doesn't even happen in the first birth. It takes the second birth before moms wake up to that truth. It takes a traumatic birth or a birth that they are not satisfied with before moms say, you know what? I didn't like that. I want something different. I want something better. My baby and I deserve better. But the work as doulas that we have come to know that how powerful women truly are is something that not all women know. And so educating women and informing women that this is their right, this is their power, and they get to informed consent, and they get to ask questions, and they get to say yes, and they get to say no, and they're running the show. That takes time, that takes energy, and not every woman is ready for taking on that level of radical responsibility. And as a birth worker, it can also feel disheartening to watch women walk down that road and not understand that, and then have experiences that take their power away further. And so the informing, the educating, and answering the questions, empowering women is always worth it. And we have to remember that it is sometimes a slow road. And what one mom wants for her birth, what's a win for her, might be completely different than what I would consider an empowering birth for me, or what I would want out of my own birth, or what another mother would want for her birth. And that's why I always center my support and my advocacy around what is most important to this mother. What is she holding in her heart that she wants most out of this birth experience? Does she want to hold her baby skin to skin after birth? Does she want an empowered pushing? Does she want to catch her own baby? Does she want to have a blissful postpartum period? Does she want to feel supported and hands-on touch from all of her birth team? What moves the needle in this mama's heart? That's what I'm supporting and advocating for, not what I want. So giving moms the info and then allowing them to make the final decision, that can sometimes be one of the hardest things of doula work, because they don't make the same decision you would make. That's one of the responses I got, was actually giving them the info, letting them decide. Yes, that is what we do. And that can also be hard when it doesn't go the way you or that mom planned. And then finally, the spiritual side of childbirth that so many people disregard and blow right past, is I'm seeing such a hunger among women and doulas and midwives for the spiritual, the depth, because you don't get into this work just to like stay surface level. Like, you become best friends with your clients, you get to know them, you are there, you are with them in the trenches, you are seeing their privates, their poop, their blood, their amniotic fluid, you are fully exposed and surrendered, and you are there to love them without judgment and without shame. And that creates such a special bond between birth workers and mamas. And so the spiritual aspect of childbirth is something we don't talk about often, but one of my favorite things to talk about on this show, as you may know. And I believe that doulas and midwives and those who truly honor the physiology of childbirth the way God designed it recognize that there is a deeply spiritual, sacred side of childbirth. And as a believer, I give all glory to God for the incredible design of how he created women's bodies. When I was a new doula, as all doulas do, we have those birth highs of the births that are incredible and empowering and euphoric. And then sooner or later, you get one of those births that knocks you off your feet. Maybe it's a 24, 48-hour labor. Maybe it ended in a cesarean. Maybe it had lots of interventions where mom wasn't asked consent and it was traumatic. But you will have both. If you stay in this work long enough, you will have the highs and the lows. And so when I encountered some of these low births that really took the wind out of my sails, I needed a community to support me. And I'm so grateful for the doula mentors that I had at that time, who poured into me, who encouraged me, who reminded me that this was not my fault. When a birth doesn't go the way you planned or mom planned, it's not your fault. And equally, we can't take credit for, oh, it went amazing and it was all because of me. No, no. But it brought to mind the importance of a community, especially among doulas, a community that shares your values, that is not afraid to challenge you, and that is not afraid to see you, to cry with you, and to celebrate you, that understands the heartache that comes with birth work and the wins that come with it, to be able to celebrate those too. So it's been in my heart ever since to create a community like that for women. And one of the things that I discovered was missing from the first round of the doula mastermind that I did was having that dedicated community time. And the phrase in my heart that I have carried with me has been to create the red tent. So, what is the red tent? Historically, the red tent refers to a cultural and symbolic space where women gathered together during menstruation, childbirth, and other significant rites of passage. This idea has roots in oral tradition, Middle Eastern tradition, even biblically, and it was a term that was popularized by a book by Anna Diamant called The Red Tent, which is a fictitious novel, and it gives the account of Dinah, who was a part of Jacob's household as Leah's daughter. And so it follows her story, taking a lot of creative liberties to rewrite it. But this is what popularized this term in modern day culture. But the idea of women gathering together has been around for thousands of years. Oftentimes, when women were bleeding, it was considered ceremoniously unclean for them to be a part of ceremonies or going to the temple. And so they had to be separate. And now, that doesn't mean that women were dirty or unclean, but it had to do with the ceremonies and the rituals of that culture. And so we can infer that women likely would have gathered together during these times when they had to come away. And I see it not as a ostracism of women, but actually as a protection, because what we now know from modern day science is that when women are menstruating or recovering from birth in the postpartum period and they're bleeding heavily, that's a time when women need to rest. They need to be separate from men. They need to not be having sex or running around chasing kids or doing heavy housework or working in the fields. They need to be resting their bodies spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And they likely gathered together and supported each other during these times. We see throughout many cultures a time of rest after childbirth. 40 days is the standard. And very often there's accounts that say for that period of time, women are to be separate, which I think in that culture, with all the demands that were on women and all the things they were carrying and the roles that they had, I think that was more of a blessing for women to be able to take that time and space away and actually rest and recover. And so this idea of the red tent is that women have a safe place to share, to come together, to support one another in these sacred life transitions of childbirth, becoming a woman, going through menstruation, which even in menstruation, we see a physical, spiritual detox happening. It's not just you bleed every month and you get cramps and you get PMS. You're doing a full detox. Your whole body resets every month. And spiritually, we detox crap that we don't need in our life. And maybe I'll share more about that one day. But when I learned the beauty and the purpose behind my bleed, I learned to love my period and not despise it. I learned even more how to love being a woman and honor my body and honor with rest and nourishment and taking care of her. I learned how sacred it was. And I truly believe that we've lost so much of this ritual in modern day motherhood and maternity care. Like there's no ritual in maternity care. It has been stripped clean. It has been bleached out. And so I hear this call. I hear a cry for women to get back to the roots of what it means to be a woman in community, to support one another in childbirth, in motherhood, in womanhood, in relationship. and to make it sacred again. Because there's not many places you can go where childbirth and motherhood is truly honored, except among other women who really get it. So it's been on my heart for years to create a modern day red tent for birth workers who could gather together, share hearts, share stories, and be supported in sacred sisterhood. This is missing from modern day birth work and motherhood in general. And it's a call to come back to your roots, to come back to sisterhood and community. It's a gathering together of women from all different generations where we'll have midwives and grandmas and mothers come and join and pour into young women, where the wisdom of women can be shared and passed down, where women who are working, supporting other women in the trenches, in the hospitals, in the homes, can receive support, can share stories, can be seen and witnessed, and where we get to honor God in this space. This is not where we're bringing in weird, like new agey rituals and ceremonies and building altars and burning incense. No, this is a Christian, biblically based sacred space for women who feel called by God to serve as a birth worker and to uphold their values, to truly honor women, as this is a women's space. We're not talking chest feeding in here. We're not saying birthing person. We're not opening up the doors and like everyone can come in who wants to be called a woman. No, like we are honoring the sacred traditions and the God designed way that birth was always meant to be a woman's work. So, Mama, if you have a burning desire to serve and support other women in labor, and it's time to take the next step. I feel like there's so many of you who've been listening, who've been binging my content, who are up late at night with their red light blocking glasses, watching birth videos, geeking out. I'm talking to you. It's time to take the next step. It is time to get the skills you need and the confidence you need to actually launch your doula business, because the doula mastermind is where it happens. Inside this program, it is a full 3 months, 14 weeks, where we dive deep into the physiology of childbirth, and it will turn everything you know about birth upside down. Even if you've already taken my pain-free birth course, you will get a new level of depth in this program. One of the students even said, I had already learned so much about physiological birth from taking the pain-free birth course while pregnant. However, this training flipped what I thought a doula was on its head, and I learned so much more about how to support and guide versus butting heads in a hospital setting. What makes the doula mastermind different than any other weekend doula certification training program out there is full immersion. You will learn the business side of everything you need to know to set up and launch your doula business, how to market, how to get legal structures in place, how to create your website, how to get clients, how to market yourself. You'll also learn how to speak and advocate with doctors and nurses without being combative, but to actually support and corral the team together for the best interest of your clients. You'll learn how to create a sustainable doula business that doesn't burn you out and doesn't take away from your family time with kids. And you'll learn how to create a stream of income that can financially support you and your family, and even potentially allow for you to quit your job or stay home and spend more time with your kids. And in this round specifically, we are gathering together once a month for our red tent gatherings, where the pure goal is to support you as a doula, as a mother, as a woman, as a parent, In whatever you need support in, we'll be bringing in voices of wisdom from other mothers, midwives, and birth workers to pour into you. We'll be asking you to share your birth stories, your wins, your highs, your lows. We'll have questions as well. We'll also have another session just for Q&A about anything you're learning or anything that comes up in the births you're attending. And I encourage all of my students to start taking births from the beginning, from day one. You don't have to wait for your certification. You are qualified and equipped as a woman of God to serve and support other women in labor. And so I'm putting out the call to those of you who know in your heart and in your soul that you are called to more, that you are called to more, who know that there is something for you on the other side of this risk, on the other side of your yes. And that if you take that first step, and trust that when you take that step, God takes the next 10. When you invest, when you put your heart and your soul and your energy into something, God shows up and opens doors. I believe that if you are still listening, that there is something tugging you here. And it is not by accident that you're listening to this podcast on this day, but that there is a call on your life for something more, to serve, to be fulfilled. And I'm asking you now, are you going to answer that call? Are you going to say yes to stepping in and supporting and giving back and making a difference in families' lives, helping women find their voice, being a source of power when she doesn't feel powerful, and lending your power and your energy and your strength to her when she needs it most? Who is waiting for you to say yes? How many mothers, how many women are waiting for you to say yes, who need that support, who need someone to hold their hand, who need you to just simply be present with them in their labor so that they know they're safe? The doors to the next Doula Mastermind open on September 2nd. Mark that date in your calendar, ladies. Our first call is September 14th. You have 2 weeks to sign up. And if you put your name on the wait list, we will email you special offers and doors open opportunities where you can be the first to join. We are anticipating that this will likely sell out again. There are only 50 spots available. And when doors open on September 2nd or earlier, if you're on the wait list, you will get first access to those seats. Ladies, I cannot wait to see you inside the mastermind. We meet weekly for teaching and training. We also have additional red tent gatherings, Q&As, and guest speakers. If you're looking for a faith-based Christian doula certification that supports your values and surrounds you within a community of other sisters answering the call on their life, I invite you to join the Pain-Free Birth Doula Mastermind. Don't wait another year to say yes to your calling. I'll see you in the room on September 14th.